related to Roy Lovett?
Yes. Yep.
And the other Lovets that lived over there present here?
Okay.
Troy and, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no problem.
I knew all those guys. I
Absolutely.
used to work for
No
Soil
problems.
Conservation Service.
Oh, yeah, you did. Sure did, Jim.
How are you?
It's been many years
Aside from the dry land,
since I was with them.
you get water?
It's like every day, we just, pick one call.
And you're a long time
Yes,
retired,
sir.
aren't you?
4 years.
What have we got today?
I quit and went to work for the
We're hoping that we
Roosevelt.
have solutions.
That's right, that's what I'm
For how the
reading.
future's gonna work out.
Yeah.
We're gaining momentum and it's
Call it to order.
continues to
Checking
remain very
something out here.
positive, which is good. Yeah, that's good. Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the meeting this morning, and we'll ask clerk, please call roll.
You can sit up here if you want to.
No, go ahead.
You didn't put your name down there.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryant,
Here.
Commissioner Madrid,
Here.
Commissioner Spear, Commissioner Rowley,
Here.
Harry Pomeroy, Raymond Mondragon, Vince DeMaio,
Here.
James Ridling,
Here.
and Commissioner Levitt.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum, so we'll move down to number 3, which is approval of the minutes of September the 8th. Those were emailed out to everyone on the committee, and I will entertain for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same with those opposed. Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to abstain, I was not here for that meeting.
Okay, we have one abstention. Okay, update on the REPI application with Jeff Davis at Cannon Air Force Base and Justin Howald. Mr. Davis, we'll let you get started.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me all right, or do I need this, or?
Yes. we-
Yes.
Okay. As the mayor said, I'm Jeff Davis. I represent Cannon Air Force Base, and the larger picture is the Department of Defense, and inside the Department of Defense is the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Proposal. The proposal I was handed the initial idea in February, and then we raced to meet all proposed timelines, which we have. The application is now headed towards the Office of the Secretary of Defense. As I was mentioning to some folks earlier, and so for the audience, I'll repeat it, that the military service portfolio briefing will be this week. The complete end to FY20 data updates in the REPI database will be mid-November. Evaluation day meeting will happen in early December, and then based on that, 21 funding allocations will come out in December 20 through July of 21. So we optimistically are holding that as our own schedule. The very good news that happened yesterday, and we've had many conversations with many entities. The one thing that we had not ascertained was the actual eligible entity, who that person was going to be, that was going to hold the keys to the easement development conversations with the farmers, the ranchers, and then ensuring that we were doing the best for all parties involved, to include the impacted cities in Curry and Roosevelt County. So that meeting yesterday was the Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. We had consulted with them previously. They did have a special meeting at our request, and then yesterday voted to provide us as the eligible entity, which is incredibly good news. They serve two fronts. Number one, they're not just a government body, but they're also a conservation agent. Excuse me. They have familiarity with all of the farmers' ranch lands and each of the independent operations, and so they are equally familiar with the already ongoing and/or opportunities for soil and water conservation. We see this as an immediate return for water conservation is natural grasslands, natural habitats, soil restoration, those types of entities that bode well, obviously. So the REPI, just to give you some background, We approach this from two fronts. Has military resiliency, which obviously the water is the quality of life. For military resiliency, we can't have a base if we don't have water. So not to draw negative attention to the ideas of BRAC, that's not our conversation. What our conversation is the longevity of sustainable water source, and then not just that sustainment to get us to the Ute water pipeline, but how do we provide a secondary sustainable water source into the Ute water pipeline for those times that the possibility of not being able to draw water at the required amounts out of Ute Reservoir then will be sustained through water availability that is either banked or purchased here through the REPI process. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions? Lots of questions?
Commissioner,
Other information? Commissioner Levitt?
Chairman, I have a question if you can. So one of the things I read when I was not part of the meeting last time, and I apologize, but was the match part of this, and there was really some confusion on that. Has that been cleared up? Do we know what match REPI may need from the city or county?
So the eligible entity has the responsibility for the match. So therein lies our challenge now, is to gather our resources to ensure that our named eligible entity has the availability of those match dollars, and we are working daily to get to that end. So what does the city and the county have a match? No, but as contributors and or partners, then absolutely. As you can imagine, we will have a very high administrative cost that is not just monetary, but resources and personnel for not just the investigations, but the development of the easements, as well as things like the RCPP application, which we're starting the development of now, and we have a very tight timeline. We feel like we're at the 80% point, though, based on previous RCPP packages. Does everybody in here know what that is, RCPP?
Why don't you go ahead and explain?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Regional Conservation Partnership Program, sorry, because I'm learning these things as I go. Yeah, so one of the conversations that I had with Mike Ford of the Conservation Fund was, how do I bring you on board? And he said the way to do that, gateway to do that, is to do an RCPP application. What we had to ask ourselves was, do we have enough information to put together this application? Do we know enough about the farmers' current operations and the availability of resources to support each of those individual initiatives that warrant the development of the RCPP? And the final conversation yesterday was, yes, we do. And so we are going to start that application process. So what does that mean? It means that we have administrative burdens that come along with that. And so, again, we are working through different conservation agents to provide ourselves with the opportunities for success, and again, to meet another timeline that's quickly approaching.
Okay.
Well, I said a lot of things. I don't know if I answered your question or not. The city and the county do not have a match. You are not the eligible entity. I think that's the answer to your question. And then, but more importantly, the city and the county have the opportunity to add funds as funds are available to support the administrative and then potential cost additions into what will become matching funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. First off, I'd like to thank Jeff for all his efforts that he's put into this program so far, as well as having to put up with myself as I ask many questions, just to make sure that we fully understand and are making educated decisions on what we're doing. And what I see this is, it's a true partnership between lots of eligible entities in trying to make this come together and could really benefit our area as well as Cannon Air Force Base. The area that they're actually looking at is, of course, the Paleo Channel, and this all arose out of our Master Water Assurance Plan. And so these are just additional efforts that we have continued to work forward and towards to try and obtain and establish those 5 different action plans that were adopted as part of that Master Water Assurance Plan, as well as try and take advantage of these programs that have been established to help keep our costs down as local entities. And so this is a huge effort and undertaking. I believe that they've requested $15 million. That doesn't mean you're going to get $15 million. It means you may get $1 million. It may mean you get 15. It may mean you get 0. But we have started the process, and so I think, once again, like I said, this is a huge partnership between lots of different organizations trying to make this come together and make this work.
Thank you. Any other
Sorry,
quick-
so
go
if
ahead.
I could caveat on that. When I finished the proposal and after I had feedback from the Air Force Civil Engineer Center, they had asked me to break out the $15 million on an annual basis to cover what we always consider to be 5-year money. 5-year money is important in terms of the DOD because that's what follows the fiscal year defense plan. Now, interestingly, this money is not on a program objective memorandum and so doesn't fall into the FIDEP, but does follow the same sequence. So all of that to say, $15 million now becomes $3 million a year. So it's an easier pill to swallow as opposed to, hey, we requested $15 million up front. The Air Force can look at this and say, we may be able to provide you money inside the REPI program that gets you through year 3, and then show us the obligation and the availability of resources and that you've expended those dollars, and then we will come back and fund you again. So I'll give you a quick example and try not to muddy the water too much. We did a similar proposal for Melrose Air Force Bombing Range, and our efforts there were to protect the surrounding farmlands, secure habitats while we protected our airspace. And so the easements were designed for everything 99 feet and above, and that protects our air traffic and our microwave signals. So the reason why I bring that up is we had asked for and received not just $3 million from DOD through REPI, but Air Force match dollars to the tune of $6 million in an effort to secure 86,000 acres. So we got all of that money up front. We were so well prepared to execute those dollars that we were given 4 years worth of money in the first year. So that was really the point of that whole ramble, was to let you know that we may receive more money up front, and the sooner we can show obligation, then the sooner we can go back and say, hey, we need additional funding to finish what we started.
Okay.
And to add on to the RCCP application, there is a letter of support on this week's agenda for your consideration that would be submitted along with that application. But it all ties back to this whole entire process.
Okay. Jeff, on the match, is that a 50-50 match?
So, yes, it is a 50-50 match. However, in one of my conversations with Mr. Jason Rose, he did say that it is negotiable. But I would just tell you the short answer is yes, it's a 50-50 match. And so that therein lies our challenge now, is to bring the additional contributors and partners into this to get as much funding in support of Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District now, who has named themselves as our eligible entity. And that, again, that comes back to RCPP and the NRCS under the USDA umbrella, as well as a potential road that leads us to the state legislature in support of funding as well. So.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Mr.
Who
Davis?
did you file the RCPP request with? Who is
Sorry?
that? Who is that filed with?
Who is the request filed with?
Yes.
So the umbrella is the USDA, and then as the Farm Bill, and then the NRCS and RCPP. So the Regional Conservation Partnership Program will go to the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
And then is SCS they're gonna try to go to the Ag Department or the Feds to access funds for the matching money? That's
Yes,
where
sir.
that'll come from?
Yes, sir. And so literature in the past that I've been provided has indicated that we've had the opportunity to do similar actions on 11,000 acres in a variance of somewhere around 58 different objective opportunities, but met with lesser success because of funding. And so if we get REPI dollars on board, then our next responsibility is to bring in those additional contributing partners, such as the in the larger umbrella, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and then the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Because we know that there are willing partners and that there's funding availability out there, and we're ready to match their dollars. That's the irony of it, I guess. We want them to bring money, and then we will show them that we have money as well.
And this is kind of a unique situation to where you have federal dollars going along with federal dollars potentially, which typically you can't do. So this is a rare opportunity to be able to match federal with federal, essentially.
So as a designated entity, do those guys then control where that water goes? You know, so for example, if they get it, if they achieve that, and then the land is put into conservation use, or some of that water is distributed, is that water then reserved for Cannon Air Force Base and Clovis, or does it go into the pipeline to go to any entity that's out there?
So, well, that's a very good question, and I don't want to speak outside my realm of expertise, which I have very little of, by the way. But I would tell you that, no, it is not Cannon Air Force Base. When the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration under the Department of Defense enters into this agreement, there's a couple things that are very important. Number one, we are not looking to make money. We don't want to get our money back in an investment. What we only want to ensure is if the necessity for water becomes a requirement, that the water is then available for us. And I think the same measure goes for all of the associated cities in Curry and Roosevelt County in this endeavor.
And that's why I
Does
think,
that answer your question?
Well, to a degree. I mean, when you have a limited resource, and then you have competing entities that want that resource, if the dollars are designated, or if a significant portion of those dollars are coming to promote readiness, then it seems like we need to be prepared to make sure that water stays in that designated area. Does that make sense?
So, yes, very similar to
I
water
mean,
bank.
you can't send that water out, and then we deplete a resource, and all of a sudden we can't fulfill the obligation that we have to the REPI dollars.
No, I understand. You're absolutely right.
and that's why the partnerships are so important in making sure that all of the entities that need to be involved are involved, and making sure that we're all at the table talking and protecting
Yes,
each
sir.
other's interests. And
Yes.
so that's where those partnerships, like I said, this is truly a major undertaking for our area.
So I can tell you that, because I'm afraid I still left you shorthanded, but yes, the water needs to, essentially it's water banking. And we need to hold the water. And then I think the next most important thing that I've learned along this road is all of those who are willing to enter into this agreement, we then have the next level responsibility to protect the surrounding lands, either through easements and or water protections as well, because we don't want the idea that farmers and or ranchers have entered into an agreement and somebody who either wasn't consulted or is in a surrounding area now feels like they have access to water that isn't being used. You're not going to use it, I can use it. And so we want to make sure that we protect the interest of those who are coming on board to enter into this agreement for the longevity of sustainable water.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Mr. Davis, thank you. I appreciate you being here this morning and
Pleasure.
giving us an update on the RIPLI application and kind of where we're at, and
Yes, sir.
sharing your knowledge of this program. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, we'll move down to number 5, which is an update regarding the playa restoration. I believe Christopher Ruste is on video, and he is with Playa Lake Joint Ventures. Christopher, you on? There you are.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Chris, I think you need to mute one of your devices.
I will do that. I do. Not good. Okay, is this any better?
No, you're still getting feedback.
Um,
Are you on the phone as well? Are you
I
dialed in?
am. The sound on my video was dropped out.
You may press *6 on your phone to mute it.
Okay. I'm going to hang up the phone.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Much better. Yes. Go ahead, you have the floor. Now we can't hear you at all. Well,
Chris, now you turned your camera off.
Christopher, you out there somewhere?
Wonder if you had-
You muted your,
but you muted it. Computer volume.
guess he turned everything off.
And we'll give him a minute. Hopefully he'll get back on and be able to make his presentation.
I sure hope so.
You're right, man.
It's changing.
Usually you go on,
Oh, my gosh.
you go on Zoom and it's pretty easy. And everybody can go on Zoom.
I can't go on Zoom.
There we go.
This is Christopher here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I guess I'm going to have to do this without video. I was unable to get the sound on my video, so I called in, and now we're here.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for being here.
I apologize. I guess I had a presentation ready to go, but we'll just do this by phone if y'all can abide by that. It's been a while since I've talked to you all. And my name is Christopher Rousset. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm a conservation delivery manager for the Playa Lakes Joint Venture. Our joint venture, just for those of you who are unfamiliar, works in 6 states in the Southern Great Plains. In New Mexico, we work basically east of the Pecos River and what you might call the New Mexico's Front Range, which includes all of Curry County. Our mission is to conserve playas, prairies, and landscapes of the Western Great Plains for the benefit of birds, other wildlife, and people. And as such, we found out about the Clovis water education efforts that were going on about 5 years ago. And we're delighted to provide information about playas and the fact that they recharge the Ogallala Aquifer, and in fact, in Curry County, seem to be the primary source of recharge for the Ogallala and Curry County. We also found out that you have a water shortage problem, and so we thought we might be able to help. We provided some information to you all, and then when the opportunity came up, we applied for a National Fish and Wildlife Grant to help with playa restoration and playa education in Curry County. We have done a number of workshops and held a number of meetings with a number of entities throughout in the state focused on Curry County. And we were also able to match the grant that we received from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to a New Mexico Department of Game and Fish Pittman-Robertson grant for about $750,000. So we have almost $1 million to play with, if you will, for playa restoration. That whole effort took us about 2 years. And during the time that a water assurance plan was being developed, but we've been working to try and do what we can to support that water assurance plan in partnership with y'all. One of the things I want to say that's most important for the efforts that we're doing now is we are focusing our efforts on the Paleo Channel in particular, that all of you I think are familiar with, but also a wider area of Curry County that actually extends a little north and west into southwest Quay County, around the area of House. In that vein, we have been talking to landowners, talking about things like removing sediment from playas, planting where needed, a 3-to-1 grass buffer, or making sure that there's at least a 3-to-1 grass buffer around playas, which ensures that any work you do to restore a playa is maintained and it's not basically throwing your money away. And removing pits in the centers of playas. Those three primary activities are really all that's needed to help restore playas in the area. To date, we have completed 64.8 acres of playa restoration. We've contracted for an additional 96.6 acres of playas. We've been working with 8 landowners and 11 playas, and the vast majority of them, or I would say 9 of those playas, have been within the priority area that I outlined to you earlier. We have an additional 48 acres that are under consideration, with a few more with just sort of interested landowners, but we haven't talked to them yet. And of the $1 million, we've committed $309,000. We hope to get more of that done within the next 3 months by the end of the year. Very short update, but I'm wondering if any of y'all have questions.
Questions for Mr. Rusty?
Paul, Chairman, I didn't get the total of how much it's cost for the acres that have been completed and proposed out of the $1 million.
The total committed has been $309,000. So we have about 600,000, maybe 500,000 more to go in terms of playa restoration work under the grant, under the 2 grants.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Christopher too, because they did, as y'all recall, we applied for the Playa Education Center at Goodwin Playa, and Christopher and Playa Lakes Joint Venture was nice enough to provide us a letter of support for that application. So once again, it just shows those continued partnerships that we have with various entities and trying to all achieve a sustainable and a great portfolio of water for our region.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions for Mr. Rusty? Christopher, thank you. We appreciate you being here and giving us an update. And hopefully we can have you back in Clovis and meet face to face again.
Well, I thank you very much. I do apologize for not being there. Because part of my salary is now being paid by the Department of Game and Fish, I am under their rules and restrictions. And one of their restrictions is that I cannot meet in an enclosed space with anybody. So I apologize to you. I did also I apologize I'm not able to be there in person. I also failed to mention one other thing. Jeff Davis has talked about the work with the Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. The vehicle through which we are doing this playa restoration is through Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. So they are becoming a pretty important player in the whole scheme of things here. So I do want to give a shout out to them. They're the entity through which all the money is flowing through us and through Game and Fish to landowners.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, we'll go ahead and move up to number 6, which is updates. I believe Mark Horta with EPCOR is not available. Do you have anything, Mr. Howald?
For EPCOR?
For EPCOR? I'm sure you have something for the city, so.
Yes. I guess in regards to EPCOR, on your upcoming commission agenda as well is the franchise agreement that we have with EPCOR. Their existing one is set to expire in the upcoming months, and so rather than waiting until the last minute, we figured we'd go ahead and get that on the agenda and in front of you. But it's another 25-year agreement with EPCOR, and the terms and conditions remain relatively the same. There were some minor updates that councils both agreed upon, and so the franchise fee is still proposed at 2%, which is what the existing franchise fee is, and is consistent with all the other franchisees that we have within our area, as well as across the state. So we went out and researched what if 2% is what the going rate is per se, And yes, it is. And so after reviewing that, we felt that it was best to recommend the same conditions as previously. So that, in regards to EPCOR, that's what I have for you.
Thank you. If you want to go ahead with the city update?
Absolutely. So of course, we continue to make great progress on our effluent reuse project. Phase 1D continues under construction. The still portion of the elevated storage tank is underway with their crews being on site. They actually construct the still on the ground and then do all the welding, et cetera, as you can imagine, before lifting that obviously up on to the pedestal itself. So still making great progress on Phase 1D. Phase 2 we have kicked off and started the design on with an emphasis of really looking at the expansion of the back 9 golf course lake. And so that is expected to wrap up 100% design towards the end of the year, and us trying to get that out to bid as soon as possible. They've already started the survey work on it, as well as some of the geotechnical work that needs to be done out there. So we're still continuing to make progress, obviously, on Phase 2. And we did close on the Water Trust Board loans, so we've received all the signed contracts, documents, et cetera for that. So those funds are set up and officially in place now at this point. As regards to delivery of the existing system, we delivered 12.5 million gallons last month in September. That's down from 15.6 in August and 13.9 in July. Just for reference, obviously it's been a very dry year. So when we look back and compare that to fiscal year 20, those same months, in July of 20, we only delivered 7.6 million. In August of 20, it was 9.9 million and 11.7 in September of 20. So you can see the substantial difference in delivery from this year versus last year, when last year we obviously had some moisture to help also water and irrigate our parks. So the addition of the reuse system has been substantial for our area and will continue to be as we continue to be able to remove those potable sources and save that groundwater for our drinking water needs versus irrigation needs, which is the substitute for the reuse water. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Holwalt? Nope. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move into for the good of the order. Anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss? If not, our date and time of next meeting will be November the 10th. Is that right, Ms. Reyes? Okay, at 8:30. And we are adjourned.